My child, congratulations. There is a reason I am saying that to you now, because the burden you have carried for so long is nearing its end, and before anything else, I want that truth to settle quietly into your heart. You have lived beneath this weight for so long that you began treating it as ordinary. You carried it into your mornings, took it into your nights, and eventually told yourself this was simply the life you had been given to endure. But I am speaking to you now because this season is closing, not at some distant time, not little by little, but now. You still cannot see the whole shape of what is approaching, yet something within you can already sense the first movement of release. You are hearing this 3 days before it happens, and this timing is not accidental. I do not move without purpose, and I do not reveal something ahead of time without a reason. I am letting these words reach you before that moment, so fear cannot take your peace and doubt cannot cloud the joy of recognizing what is happening. I want you to know beforehand that this is real, so when it begins unfolding, you will recognize it for what it is. Not luck, not coincidence, but fulfillment. These days before the breakthrough are not meaningless days of waiting. They are sacred ground, a bridge carrying you from what has been into what is about to be. This is not coincidence. You were chosen to hear this before the breakthrough comes, and being chosen does not place you above anyone else. Here it means you are ready. You are ready because you kept walking when part of you wanted to stop, because you endured answers that came slowly, and because disappointment did not succeed in turning your heart cold or teaching you to expect nothing good. Others have faced difficult seasons too, but you allowed what shook you to shape you instead of destroy you, and I have seen it. Do not pass over this moment too quickly, because what is approaching will affect more than your circumstances. It will change the way you understand what you have lived through. You will remember nights when tears were the only language you had, and realize those nights were not wasted. And you will look differently at delays that once felt like denial. Even the confusion will begin to make sense as part of the preparation, and this very moment belongs to that understanding. Think of it as the quiet announcement that comes before the change becomes visible. I have been preparing this beyond what you could see, and now the season is beginning to turn in your favor. While you waited, I was working. While questions filled your mind, I was bringing things into alignment. While your strength was wearing thin, I was removing what could not follow you into the season ahead. Quiet preparation rarely looks remarkable from the surface, but its strength is like roots growing where no one can see them, deepening enough to carry what will eventually rise above the ground. That is why this required time. I was preparing more than what you asked me for. I was preparing you to receive it. If these words have reached you now, heaven has marked this moment in your life as a point of transition, movement, and receiving what once seemed beyond your reach. Heaven does not speak carelessly or step into a life without purpose, and this message has met you at a time when your heart is able to hear it, even if you still feel uncertain or cautious. I know there is a part of you that has become afraid to hope again, because disappointment taught you to hold expectation at a distance. I know that fear, and I know why it's settled there, but fear does not have the final word. Watch carefully, my child, because your breakthrough is no longer being held back. It is drawing near, and I want you to understand how it may come. A breakthrough does not always enter with noise. Sometimes it first appears as unexpected relief, clarity you did not have to force, or a peace that reaches your heart before your circumstances visibly change. Do not become so focused on something dramatic that you overlook the quieter evidence. Notice what begins aligning, the doors that open without constant struggle, and the answers that carry calm instead of chaos. Sometimes the first sign of change is simply realizing that what once kept your heart clenched is beginning to loosen its grip. I know you have hoped before and watched the timing pass differently from what you expected, and I know what repeated disappointment taught you to do. You lowered your expectations so hope could hurt less, and although that helped you keep functioning, it also taught your heart to remain guarded even when something good drew near. I am not asking you to manufacture excitement. I am asking you to make room for trust, knowing I would not speak this to you if the work that needed to happen out of sight was still unfinished. If He has brought you out of the past, type, "Thank you, Lord, for new beginnings." This is still a moment worth celebrating, even if the celebration inside you is quiet. Sometimes celebration is simply the breath that finally leaves your lungs after you have held it too long. Sometimes it is a tear with no sadness behind it, or a stillness in which your heart finally senses that the struggle is ending. That is what I am placing before you now. rest before release, assurance before arrival, because you have been moving toward this moment, even when you could not recognize the road. Every lesson, every correction, and every time you had to begin again moved you closer, while even what felt like a setback kept you away from paths that could have delayed this moment further. I know those redirections did not always feel kind while you were living through them. And I know there were moments when you questioned me and wondered whether I had heard you at all. Yet here you are, standing near something you once brought to me in prayer, carrying memories of the waiting but no longer standing where you began. In these days, guard your heart by keeping it steady rather than closing it, and do not allow doubt or old voices to speak more loudly than the truth of what I am doing now. There will be reasons to hesitate and reasons to remain cautious, but there is also something I want you to remember about me. I am faithful, I complete what I begin, and I did not bring you this far simply to abandon you here. This is why I am speaking before the moment arrives. When it starts, you will remain steady. When it unfolds, you will not be overcome by panic. And when it finally stands before you, you will not have to wonder whether it is real. You will remember this moment and remember that I spoke to you before you could see it with your own eyes. And that memory will strengthen your faith for everything that follows. My child, allow joy to return gently and give hope room to breathe inside you again. Let expectation come back without turning it into pressure, because you do not have to struggle for this or exhaust yourself chasing after it. What is coming is already moving toward you. For now, remain open, grateful, and present instead of racing into tomorrow in your mind or returning again and again to what happened yesterday. Stay here, where something quieter is beginning to take root in you. Peace. Congratulations, my child. Not because every detail has fallen perfectly into place, but because the hardest stretch of this journey is coming to an end. The season that made waiting feel endless is closing, and you are approaching a chapter you once wondered whether you would ever live to see. When you finally step into it, you will understand why these words reached you at this particular moment. Watch carefully, but let faith shape the way you watch, and let trust loosen the tension you have carried for so long. What you have brought to me in prayer is no longer somewhere far in the distance. It is drawing closer, and I am with you through every step that leads into it. My child, congratulations, it is over, and I want you to hear those words slowly enough for your heart to receive them. I am not giving you an exciting phrase merely to lift your emotions for a moment. I am speaking with peace and authority about something you have carried for far too long. The chapter that seemed to stretch without an ending, the waiting that became so familiar that you learned how to survive rather than expect, has reached its close. You did not imagine how exhausting it was, and you did not make the pain larger than it truly was. The struggle was real, and now it has finished its work. I speak with relief because I know what this season asked of you, including the days when you told yourself to stay strong, while somewhere inside you were simply tired. I know how many mornings you opened your eyes wondering whether anything would ever change, and how often you kept moving because stopping did not feel like an option. You learned to live without answers, to carry hope quietly, and even to keep your faith small enough that another disappointment would not break your heart again. I saw every part of that, including what no one around you understood, and I am telling you with certainty that you will not be required to endure in the same way anymore. This season has completed what it came to accomplish, and these words are not empty excitements designed to stir you for a few minutes. I do not declare an ending without meaning it, and what I am speaking over this moment is fulfillment rather than wishful thinking. Some seasons remain until their purpose has been completed, and this one has now fulfilled its purpose. It shaped you, refined you, and strengthened places within you that were difficult to recognize while you were still living through the pressure. You are not walking away from this season as the same person who entered it. You are leaving with preparation that was formed through what you endured. I know there were moments when you felt trapped inside the same lesson, wondering why progress seemed painfully slow while other people appeared to move ahead of you. You searched yourself for some hidden mistake and wondered whether you were somehow failing, but, my child, failure was not what was happening. You were being held in a season where patience mattered more than speed, and patience has now accomplished what it needed to accomplish. If these messages have brought encouragement into your life and helped deepen your devotion to God, you can support this work through the QR code or the support link in the description. Your support helps this work continue reaching hearts that need encouragement, and now what once seemed endless has arrived at its conclusion. That does not mean every part of life becomes perfect in a single instant. It means the resistance you kept pressing against is no longer standing in the same place before you. The door that remained closed is no longer locked, and the weight that rested so heavily on your spirit is beginning to lift. Not chaotically, but decisively. You are moving out of survival and into movement, even if your emotions still need time to understand what has changed. Let yourself recognize the victory without demanding that it look dramatic. Victory does not always enter a room with shouting. Sometimes it arrives so quietly that you first recognize it as stillness. Sometimes it is the breath you finally release, the relief you almost overlook, or the simple realization that you will not have to keep fighting the same battle in the same way. That is what I am giving you now, a future different from the one you had trained yourself to brace against. You carried this burden longer than you wanted to, yet you carried it faithfully without surrendering your heart to bitterness. You had opportunities to give up, yet something in you kept going, and even when hope became something you handled carefully, you never abandoned it completely. That matters to me, and I honor what I saw in you, because this ending is not random, and your endurance did not pass unnoticed. Still, I know there is a cautious place inside you listening to these words, and quietly wondering whether believing them is safe. Disappointment taught you to protect yourself, so part of you would rather wait, observe, and keep your expectations low than risk being hurt again. I understand why that instinct formed, because it helped you remain steady when so much around you felt uncertain. But hear me clearly now. You do not have to brace yourself against this. You are allowed to receive it. I am not telling you this season is over merely to motivate you. I am telling you because it is true. The repeating cycle has been broken, the delay that taught you patience has reached its boundary, and the lesson that carried so much weight has been learned. You were never meant to remain where you were. You were meant to move through it, and you have. This is release from constantly asking how much longer, from fearing that this struggle might be all your life would ever hold, and from spending so much strength simply trying to keep yourself together. I know what that constant effort did to your joy, your rest, and even your willingness to dream about what life could become. You learned to adapt because you had to, but merely adapting was never the same thing as fulfillment, and now fulfillment is beginning to come into view. As you hear this, allow yourself to breathe differently and feel some of the tension you have carried begin to loosen. Let your shoulders soften and the tightness around your heart ease, because the invisible weight you have been carrying can finally be put down. You no longer have to prove how strong you can be. Continually prepare yourself for disappointment or remain trapped in survival. You are allowed to move forward. I know that when you look back, this season carries more than one emotion, because pain lives in those memories alongside growth you could barely recognize while it was happening. You learned discernment and resilience. You learned to listen more carefully, and you discovered with greater clarity what truly matters and what does not. Those lessons are coming with you, but the heaviness attached to them is not. What formed wisdom in you can remain without requiring you to continue carrying the burden that formed it. The weight does not follow you into what comes next, and this ending, though gentle, is firm. What is closed is not being undone, and you are not being sent backward into what you have already come through. The ground beneath this season has shifted, your direction has changed. Even if everything around you appears unchanged for a little while, the season itself has already come to an end, and movement will follow, because the resistance that stood before you has been removed. I want you to hear me here about something your heart has questioned many times. You did not imagine how long this was, and feeling exhausted beneath its weight did not make you weak. Wanting it to end did not make you impatient, because long seasons can wear down even the strongest heart. I know how much this asked of you. You came through this season not because you handled every moment perfectly, but because you remained with me even when you could not understand what I was doing. That is why there is relief in the way I speak to you now. I know the toll this took, and I know the peace that is about to take its place. You may not feel overflowing joy yet, and that is okay, because sometimes joy returns only after the heart learns that it is safe to trust again. For now, receive the peace that tells you the struggle is no longer continuing, and that this chapter has truly closed. I'm not asking you to hurry toward whatever comes next. I'm asking you to honor what has just ended. An ending matters, especially when you spent so long wondering whether you would ever reach it. So give yourself a moment to recognize the distance you have traveled. Look at yourself now. After everything, you are still standing. Your heart is still open, and you are still capable of receiving. That alone carries its own quiet victory. Your mind may immediately want to ask what happens next, to make plans, anticipate possibilities, and prepare itself for every outcome before anything has even happened. You have lived in that state of preparation for so long that staying ready for the next difficulty may feel almost automatic. But this moment is not asking you to prepare for another struggle. It is asking you to receive assurance. What comes next will unfold in its proper time. And right now I want one truth to settle deeper than all your questions. It is over. I am not saying those words to impress you or create a temporary rush of emotion. I am saying them so your heart can finally become quiet. The season that shaped you through hardship has finished its work. The waiting that taught you endurance has reached its purpose, and the pain that seemed to have no boundary has reached its limit. You are beginning to move within a different flow now, even before every outward detail reflects it. When your mind wanders backward or old fears whisper that nothing ever truly changes, remember what I have spoken. Hold to it when doubt tries to reopen questions that have already exhausted you, because I do not tell you lightly that this season is over. I speak with certainty. Congratulations, my child. Not because everything has suddenly become easy, but because the hardest part has passed. You endured without losing yourself, and where life once seemed motionless, movement is about to replace stagnation. What felt as though it would continue forever has finally reached its conclusion. Stay here with me for this moment, and allow the relief to reach the places in you that have remained tense for too long. Victory can be quiet. You do not have to manufacture happiness, prove that you are excited, or force your emotions to arrive before they are ready. You only need to receive what is true. It is over, and you are moving forward with me. My child, I also want you to understand why you are being allowed to know this before it happens. I did not reveal it early merely to impress you, nor did I speak beforehand simply to create excitement. I allowed you to know before the breakthrough because your heart needs peace before fulfillment arrives, not only afterward. There are moments when even a blessing can overwhelm a heart that has spent too long expecting pain. Fear can take joy from the moment, and doubt can make gratitude difficult to receive. That is why I am speaking now, before what is coming begins to unfold, so your heart can meet it with steadiness rather than shock. Some people need to know ahead of time because their hearts need somewhere firm to rest, and you have carried anxiety long enough. You have spent too much time bracing for another disappointment, teaching yourself to expect the worst, because expecting less seems safer than hoping again. If the breakthrough arrived before peace reached you, part of you might question the gift before you ever allowed yourself to enjoy it. You might begin fearing its loss while it was still arriving, and I do not want you to receive what is good with your heart already preparing to lose it. I want you calm, grounded, and secure in me before the circumstances around you begin to change. Knowing beforehand is not about giving you control over what happens. It is about giving your heart stability while it happens. When change begins beneath your feet, you will have a place within you that already knows how to remain still. You will not need to rush or grasp at what arrives, and you will not need to protect it so tightly that fear steals the very gift you are trying to hold. You can remain steady and allow what is being given to reach you, which is why I spoke before the moment came. I wanted faith to have time to settle before fear could run ahead of it, and I wanted peace to speak before anxiety could decide what my work meant. This advance awareness is preparing you to receive rather than react. I know what happens inside your mind when life changes unexpectedly. Questions rise quickly, your attention searches for danger, and even in moments of gain, some part of you begins preparing for loss. That does not mean your faith is absent. It means you have lived through enough sudden disappointment that your heart learned to remain alert as a way of surviving. I see that response in you, and I am not rebuking you for it. I am meeting it with peace before movement comes, because the part of you that learned to brace itself is being given room to heal. Knowing before you see creates a different kind of faith than understanding only after everything has happened. Faith formed before fulfillment is quieter and steadier, because it is not waiting for visible proof before it rests in trust. When you hear my voice and believe before the outcome appears, something deep within you begins to settle. You become less reactive, less governed by fear, and more able to remain present. That steadiness will help you move through what is coming without allowing anxiety to take the joy from it. You are hearing this beforehand because your spirit is being prepared to receive without fear, and that preparation is not punishment, it is kindness. I am teaching your heart to remain peaceful when things begin to change, and I am teaching your mind to trust without racing ahead of the moment. I am giving you space to loosen the old patterns of worry that do not belong in the season ahead. If His presence brings peace to your heart, say, "The Lord surrounds me with peace." I know part of you may wonder why I would not simply allow everything to happen first and explain it afterward. But listen carefully. Some hearts need understanding after the miracle, while yours needed reassurance before it. You have lived beneath tension for too long and spent too many nights quietly wondering what might go wrong next. I am beginning to break that pattern by letting peace speak first. Knowing ahead of time also protects your heart from disbelief. When something good enters your life unexpectedly after you have waited for so long, receiving it can be harder than you imagined. You question whether it will stay, you watch for the first sign that something might go wrong, and even when you want to celebrate, part of your heart remains guarded. I do not want you to overlook the beauty of what I am doing, because you are already preparing yourself for its failure. That is why I am speaking beforehand, teaching you to recognize fulfillment when it appears rather than fear it when it arrives. What you know now is not meant to make you restless, or send your mind searching for signs everywhere. It is meant to bring you into stillness. In stillness, trust has room to grow, fear becomes quieter, and faith moves beyond something you understand in your mind, and becomes something your whole being can rest in. I want you steady when the moment comes, able to remain present instead of being pulled away by anxiety. There is something else I want you to understand, my child. Knowing beforehand also teaches your heart how to become grateful before fulfillment becomes visible. Gratitude offered early changes the way you receive, because it loosens the need to grasp, control, or hold too tightly to what is coming. It reminds you that what arrives is a gift rather than something you must manage through fear. Thankfulness prepares your soul to carry blessing with humility and peace. I am also guarding you from the voices that could create confusion once change begins. Sudden change often attracts opinions, doubts, warnings, and comparisons from people around you. But by speaking to you first, I am giving you clarity before those voices arrive. You will be able to recognize what is unfolding because you have already heard my voice concerning it, and you will not need to search everywhere for someone else to confirm what you already know. Some understand only after they have seen, while others are invited to believe before sight gives them proof. Both can be guided, beloved, but believing before seeing forms trust in a way that reaches beyond a single moment. It creates a foundation capable of carrying you through this breakthrough and through the seasons that follow it. Pay attention to what this awareness is producing inside you, because its evidence may not be excitement that rises quickly and disappears just as fast. It may simply be a peace that remains. Perhaps you already notice that you are calmer than you expected to be, more grounded and less driven by the need to know every detail immediately. That is preparation taking place within you, faith finding somewhere deeper to rest, and your heart slowly learning that it no longer has to brace itself against everything good. You are being shown this before it happens so you can begin putting down the fear you have carried for too long. That fear became familiar because it tried to protect you from hoping too deeply and whispered that beautiful things could never be trusted to remain. That fear does not belong in what comes next, and it needs to be addressed before change arrives rather than ignored until afterward. Knowing in advance gives you time to loosen its hold, while also allowing your expectations to become clearer. A breakthrough does not always appear in the form people imagine, and if you are watching only for one dramatic expression of change, you may overlook how it actually begins. Sometimes it enters quietly, unfolds one step at a time, or starts within you before anything outside you looks different. I am telling you beforehand so you can recognize what is happening instead of missing it because you expected it to look another way. You will be watching from a place of trust rather than tension, and I am not asking you to examine every small event or spend these moments counting down the hours. I am asking you to rest in what I have spoken, because rest is not passivity here. It is confidence that you do not have to force what is coming. What is approaching does not need to be chased. You need only to be ready to receive it. You are being prepared beforehand so that wisdom, rather than a sudden rush of emotion, can guide the way you respond. Even a beautiful moment can become distorted when fear takes over the response, while wisdom gives you space to receive what is happening fully. Wisdom develops when there is time to become ready, and that is what these moments are giving you. My child, I am not placing this knowledge before you to tease your heart with something just beyond its reach. I am surrounding you with peace, not lifting your expectations, only to leave you disappointed. I am steadying the places within you that learn to tremble around hope, so that when what is coming arrives, you can actually experience it, instead of immediately fearing its loss. I am not pushing you toward tomorrow. I am anchoring you here, in this moment, before tomorrow comes. When the breakthrough arrives, you will be able to meet it without being startled into panic or questioning whether what stands before you can truly be received. You will recognize it, and you will be able to welcome it. So let that recognition begin within you now. This is part of how I care for you. I speak before storms and before sunshine, preparing hearts before change and bringing calm before movement begins. I want you to know beforehand, because you were not meant to enter what is coming, while fear was still gripping your heart. Let what you know bring peace instead of urgency and confidence instead of pressure, because there is nothing special you need to perform to make this happen. Trust me and remain steady, my child, because you are being shown this beforehand out of love, and because your heart matters to me. I want your joy to be full rather than fragile, and I want faith to shape the way you experience what comes next. Remain calm, open, and grounded as what is coming arrives in its proper time. When it does, you will be prepared to receive it through peace rather than fear. My child, this is not a coincidence, and I want you to hear me today. I want you to settle deeply, because doubt has tried many times to convince you otherwise. You have questioned the timing of your life, wondered why certain events unfolded the way they did, and struggled to understand why one path opened while another suddenly closed. You have watched plans change and delays interrupt things you once believed were certain, and somewhere along the way, you began wondering whether life was simply random, and whether you were only reacting to whatever circumstance came next. Perhaps you began to wonder whether you were simply surviving one disconnected event after another, trying to make sense of things that had no connection at all. But I am speaking to you now, because I want that doubt to loosen its hold on your heart. Nothing about the road you have traveled has been accidental, and this moment is not random. Divine timing rarely resembles the plans people make for themselves. What looks scattered from where you stand can still be part of something you have not yet been able to see as a whole. You learn to expect life to move in straight lines, with visible progress and outcomes you could predict. But my work is often orchestration rather than convenience. I move what you cannot see, bring together moments you never planned, and lead you through roads whose meaning may become clear only when you look back. Some steps seemed wasted, some delays looked like failure, and some unexpected changes felt like setbacks, but they were not what you assumed they were. Some of those redirections were protection, and every step carried you toward this point, including the ones you resisted. That includes the turns you could not understand and the moments that felt completely wrong while you were inside them. I was guiding you through what you were able to carry rather than simply giving you everything you wanted, because desire does not always recognize what is best, while trust learns slowly through experience. Your trust was being formed through every turn, including those moments when you felt certain about a direction and suddenly found the way blocked. I remember the frustration and confusion you felt when a door closed after you had already begun walking toward it. Those closed doors were not rejection, they were refinement, keeping unnecessary weight from following you into this moment and preventing attachments that could have slowed you later. You did not simply lose time there, you gained clarity, even if you could not recognize it while the door was closing. And then there were the delays that felt almost unbearable, when nothing seemed to move, and waiting felt like standing still while everyone else's life continued around you. You wondered whether you had been left behind and quietly questioned whether your opportunity had already passed. My child, delay does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes guidance is most active precisely where movement is hardest to see. While you waited, things beyond your reach were being brought into alignment. Hearts were changing, circumstances were shifting, and timing was being adjusted so movement could eventually work in your favor. You were redirected more often than you realized through quiet nudges, unexpected changes, conversations that altered your course, and opportunities that disappeared before you understood why. What felt like improvising was often guidance, and what felt like merely adapting was also positioning. These words are reaching you now because every one of those steps brought you to a place where you could actually hear them. Had they reached you earlier, you might have passed them by, and had they arrived later, doubt might have spoken more loudly. But now your heart is ready, your awareness is sharper, and your spirit is listening. This is not coincidence, this is timing. And I know that when you look backward, there are still prayers whose answers did not come in the form you hoped for, and moments when you wonder why clarity remained distant when you needed it most. Clarity does not always arrive at the moment you request it. Sometimes it comes when you are able to receive it without being harmed by what you now understand. There were things you needed to live through before their meaning could become clear, losses that taught you how deeply release matters, and limitations that helped you recognize freedom when it appeared. Nothing in your story has been wasted, including detours that once seemed to lead nowhere. They formed patience, sharpened discernment, and taught you to listen more carefully than you did before. Without those lessons, what reassures you now might instead have overwhelmed you, because what came before shaped your ability to receive what you are hearing today. You may think you happened upon this message accidentally, but you were guided here through whatever brought you curiosity, restlessness, searching, or even an ordinary moment of boredom. However you arrived at the right time, because divine timing can hide inside choices that appear completely ordinary. You clicked, you paused, you stayed, and now you are here. That is orchestration rather than chance. I want to remove the belief that you are late or somehow behind, because you are where you need to be at this point in your journey. Time with me is not measured by how quickly you move. It is measured by readiness, so you are not desperately trying to catch up. You are arriving. Everything you lived through prepared you to understand what you can understand now, including parts of the story you wish you could erase. Even those experiences contributed to the person standing here today. I know comparison can make this difficult to see, especially when you watch other people receive sooner, walk roads that appear smoother, or experience breakthroughs that seem to come with less waiting. My child, comparison can hide the orchestration taking place within your own path, because every journey is different, just as every heart is different. What you needed to learn came through the road you walked, and what has been formed within you grew through that same journey. You were not simply delayed, you were being developed. This moment required the endurance you learned, the humility that grew through waiting, and your willingness to continue when you could no longer see the point of continuing. Those qualities did not appear accidentally. They were cultivated through what you lived, and now they help you recognize truth when it draws near. I know doubt still whispers that this may be only another message, another hopeful moment that will eventually fade. But that whisper comes from fear rather than truth. There is a reason these words feel different to you, and there is a reason they resonate with what you have carried for so long. Truth can feel strangely familiar when it begins connecting pieces your heart has quietly held without knowing how they belong together. You did not have to force your way here or chase this moment down. What was meant to meet you here arrived where you were, and this message has found you because it belongs to this moment in your life. I want you to trust that I know what I am doing with your story, because I have seen the whole picture from the beginning while you have had to live it one piece at a time. I understand why seeing only fragments made you question, doubt, and sometimes become deeply tired. But now, I am inviting you to notice that the pieces are beginning to fit. The pattern is becoming visible, and the waiting was never empty. If you run to God when life becomes heavy, comment, "God is my safe refuge," and share this video.